Everybody, Mike here, aka USAFA Dad. I'm back with another video guide, and this time we're talking about another key date in a cadet's life, and this is Parents' Weekend. We started off with I Day, which is the drop-off date, late June. Then we went on to the Acceptance Day, A Day, which is when they pass their basic training and are accepted into the cadet wing. And that was your first opportunity to see them since they left home, usually for an hour, hour and a half. This is kind of a big event because it's the first time that you really get to spend some quality time with your cadet face to face. Also, the difference now is that Parents' Weekend includes all four grade levels, all the way through the senior year, C1C. But we're going to kind of stick to the C4C, the Dooley, the freshman, and because this is usually the first time parents are really getting into the swing of things in terms of what's happening in their cadet's life. This annual event occurs over Labor Day weekend, and so I want to take a closer look at what Parents' Weekend looks like throughout all the days that it's going on. Now, I'd advise everybody to look at USAFA website where everything is spelled out on what the previous year's schedule looked like. Obviously, it's the military, right? So it's very well explained and planned out. And year to year, it doesn't look like really much of anything has changed. Just double check for your particular year when it's your turn. I'd also advise most families live out of town, and so use Thursday as a travel date. You're going to see a couple of nuggets on Wednesday night, Thursday day, where you could do a few things. They don't typically apply to most folks, and so it's not really something that I think people need to worry about or consider coming in super early unless they really choose to do so, because most everything will happen starting Friday morning. All right, so let's take a look at Friday then. So traveling on Thursday, stay overnight, get ready for the next day. Starting around 8 a.m. On Friday, you'll have a number of different types of presentations that you can attend, usually by senior command staff. Certainly an option for you to do. I didn't do them this year. I felt like we had a pretty clear understanding of what was going on with our particular cadet. There'll also be some different vendors, and this is all happening around Doolittle Hall. You can check your maps to see where that is on campus. It's on the west side of the campus. The real meat and potatoes of Parents' Weekend starts off around 11:30 a.m. on Friday. And this is where things start kicking off at Stillman Field. This is the large parade ground. I'd say grab a seat in the stands around 11:30, and about 11:45, things start to happen. The student skydiving team will start doing demonstrations. You'll see the gliders doing these spectacular aerial maneuvers. I mean, it was truly breathtaking what these student pilots were doing. We were just in awe of their skill. You'll see powered flight flybys, again, students as well as active duty officers flying those aircraft. You'll see a couple of demonstrations. I think the rifle drill team was out there doing some this year. And when all that's completed, that's when the student body will march in. This is the entire cadet wing. It's the 4,000 plus student body. And that's where you'll see them coming in, marching in, kind of like they did in A Day. It's very similar in that fashion. They'll do their flybys through the review stand, and then they finally come to attention as an entire student body. At that point, then you'll get released like you were on A Day. You'll be released out onto the parade field where you can find, or maybe not find, your cadet. Remember, there's 4,000 plus cadets, and you're going to have times two that at least of family all merging on a Stillman Field trying to find each other. So if you haven't already, you'll find that the student body is lined up by squadron. On the left side of where you're facing the field, on your far left in the stands, it's going to be Squadron 1. Far right is going to be Squadron 40. So in between there, and you'll see the markers actually laid out on the field. You'll kind of get a feel for where you want to sit so that you can walk straight out to try and find your cadet. If you're on the far right and your students in Squadron 2 or 3, they're on the far left, you're going to be spending a ton of time looking for them. All right, so let's just jump ahead and say that you've found them. You guys exchanged some hugs and high fives and taken a couple of quick pictures. Now this is really a chance for you to hang with them and really see for the first time the main campus, because they are now escorting you. This is where you get to go to all the areas that you couldn't go when you were just a simple visitor. You're going to pass a number of areas of campus. You'll see where they were let off on the bus for the first time, where they stood with their feet on the yellow footprints. You can hang a left and go to the library, which I highly recommend. It was a beautiful, boy, what a beautiful view that they have east overlooking Colorado Springs. And it was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. And it just kind of get a sense and a feeling of what they have in front of them when they're at the library, because they spend a lot of time there. Leave there, you go out on the terrazzo. Again, stunning. There are statues. The water features out there are beautiful. And then right in front of you is the start of the Rocky Mountains, and it's all right there, and really breathtaking. And I live here, and I was kind of in awe. So take lots of pictures, really soak in, and they'll show you the walkways that all the freshmen have to run on until recognition. So you kind of get a sense of, just how far they have to go in between classes and get back to their dorms. So that takes me to my next step in this process. The C4Cs, the freshmen, they are required to go to their squadron open house. So each squadron has an open house. The freshmen arrive. Some of the squadron command staff will be there. I think this happened around, I want to say about 2:30 or so is when they were required to report in. You'll get into the hallway where they live. You'll see their rooms, the whole 9 yards. But they will also do something like a little demonstration. I know our squadron did. I think pretty much all the other squadrons I heard from different parents said the same thing. Is every day the freshmen have to report on the minutes of the day.
Until contact time for parents' weekend. The uniform of the day is short sleeve blues. I say again, there are 60 minutes until the contact time for parents' weekend. Secure your lights and rooms, please. This is the way.
Checkpoints, go!
Sir, the checkpoints for today are as follows. The uniform of the day is short sleeve blues. The days until commissioning for the class of 2024 are 272 days. The days until ring dance for the class of 2025 are 266 days. The days until exemplar dinner for the class of 2026 are 13 days. The days until recognition for the class of 2027, all or nothing together, are 223 days. This concludes your report for today. This is the way.
At some point, they're then released from that particular requirement with their squadron. My son is an IC, so his team held a parent meeting around 4:00 at the gym. So our son was released, and then we walked over to across campus to where his team practices every day. After the meeting was concluded, we went and got our car, and we drove back to his dorm. And this is when we dropped off a couple of things that we had with us. Not everything, but some of it, including a refrigerator. Not all students get a refrigerator. My son, he's an IC, intercollegiate athlete, and they will get a waiver to have one in their room, which is a pretty standard thing. Cross your fingers if your student is not an IC that one of the roommates is, and that can keep that chocolate from melting in their room. But their duties aren't quite over yet. The next day is the opening football weekend, and all students are required to be at the game. And so we had to make a choice, which are two options that were offered us this year, and I believe all previous years as well, is whether or not that he wanted to stay with us, and we were at a hotel, whether or not he would stay with us at a hotel overnight and then drive him back early in the morning, because the next day he had to report in before the game, Or what we chose to do was we went out to a really nice dinner. We met up and socialized and caught up for a little while and back in our room. And then I think the North Gate was closing at 10 p.m. So I took him back to his dorm so that he could sleep in a little bit later than he would if he was staying with us in the room. And it just kind of gave him a little bit of wiggle room to kind of get things straightened up and his clothing changed without having to drag it around, with us in where we were staying at. I saw plenty of cadets rolling out of their hotel the next morning, and either way is fine. I think a lot of folks decided on keeping their cadet overnight with them. We knew we were going to be actually driving home because we're within the Denver area. And so him staying that night in his dorm room on his own made the most sense for us. And that's what he preferred too. All right. So next morning is the football game. And if you've never been to a game, you are in for a real treat. And if you have been to a game, this is still something really special for your C4C cadet, your Doolie. This is the first time they get to march into the stadium through the tunnel and stand with the student wing. And when they're released into the student section, keep your eyes on the swarm of blue uniforms as they race up into the stands. No, cadets aren't falling down. They're being tackled by their classmates, and oftentimes their shoes are being taken off. And it's a tradition. It's hilarious. And people are kind of confused by it until they kind of realize what's happening. But really that very first time that they get to march in, our son told us how special that was. They were hooting and hollering in the tunnels. It was high amped up, energy. And then as soon as they exit that tunnel, they lock into their military form, and the transition, their ability to do that at the drop of a hat. It's pretty cool to see. Also, during the opening of the football games, you'll see skydiving coming into the stadium, including the mascot, which is kind of cool to see. You'll see the flybys, jets of different airframe platforms will fly over different games. So we saw a bunch of T-38s fly over in formation, and that was really cool. There is not another college in this country, apart maybe from the other academies, that have such a spectacle of an opening sequence before the games begin. And it's really breathtaking to see. And there's a lot of pride in that stadium when all this is going on. Okay, so you'll watch the game. And then after the game, again, it's a scramble to try and find your cadet in the swarm of human beings. So come up with a game plan. What we did this year was there's a particular stand just by the north entrance, the north gate where all the spectators come through. We found a spot that had a big American flag on there. We knew to meet up there, and then so we did, and that worked out well. All right, so we went back to our son's dorm room to pick up his laundry and a couple other items. We made our way back to the dorms. We picked all that stuff up. And now this is when your actual visit begins. This is when your vacation of a couple of days starts. So we hopped in the car, and probably within 10 feet of the north gate, I look over my right shoulder, and our son is completely out. Now, remember, this is the first time since before they left home to actually shut off the switch and are fully relaxed. The very first time. And so time and again, I heard from other parents that their kids were dead asleep even before they got off of base. And this is really their chance to kind of unwind, unload all that burden that they carry. Now, in years past, there was a 50-mile radius that the cadets had to stay within. This year, they dropped that and made it, they had to stay inside the state of Colorado. Now, no one's going to want to leave Colorado when you have 48 hours to do so. It's just not enough time, and that just takes too much away from your visit with your cadet. This brings me to my next point, and this is really important, I think, for people to understand. Don't go making a ton of plans over the course of the next 2 days. Only if your cadet wants to do all these things, right? You've made a huge effort and made all these big plans to come to Colorado, and there's a million things to do here and see. Now is not the time. This is their first chance to unwind. They're physically and mentally, emotionally drained from the last couple of plus months. This is really their time to recharge and get their batteries back in the alignment. Only if they want to do stuff should you be making a ton of plans. Do this another time. There's more time over Thanksgiving. There's a lot of time over Christmas for most people. Some ICs will be busy, but for the most part, the student body will have a lot of time over Christmas. Don't do it parent weekend unless your student wants to do that. I think my son slept 16 hours that first night. He got to his own bed, and I actually had to wake him up. They're going to want to eat a ton. They're going to want to take a long shower. They're going to want to lay around in civilian clothing inside. When they leave the home or leave the hotel or wherever they're staying, they have to be in uniform, but they're going to want to just lounge. They might want to make phone calls to their friends, get on social media, all the things that they've given up for the past couple of months. Don't ask them to follow you somewhere because you wanted to go see a bunch of stuff, unless that's truly what they want to do. This is really the time for you guys to reconnect. And if you're busy running around town or running around the state of Colorado, you're not going to get that quality time that you've actually been missing now for quite a while. However you decide to spend these 2 glorious days together, the weekend will be over before you know it. And there is a report time back on Monday. This year it was 7:45 p.m. I've seen 7:30 in the past, but sometime in the waning daylight hours on Monday. Now remember, there are thousands of cadets coming back to campus around the same time, and most everyone are dragging stuff up to the dorm rooms. Give yourself enough time to do so. I recommend getting back at least an hour before the actual report time, because parking is going to be a nightmare. You're going to want to get as close as you can to the dorms so you're not dragging stuff halfway across campus. Social media was rampant on rumors about whether or not we could or couldn't, help bring things up to our students' dorm room. And the answer was, yes, you could. This is still part of Parents' Weekend before the actual stop time. So we all grabbed stuff out of the car. We took it upstairs. If you have a dolly or a little wagon that you can bring with you, if that's something feasible, I highly recommend it. I saw tons of people dragging everything uphill, just looking like, they're half dead. I probably could have sold my wagon for $500 to people like hauling stuff up there. So do that if you can. There is something here that I think is really important and unexpected that caught me and everyone else by surprise. This drop-off in some ways was harder than I-Day. It really was. I-Day was almost a tuck and roll, leaping out of your car as soon as it comes to a stop. But this one, it included families coming up to the dorms and slowly walking out and taking a few extra pictures, grabbing those last hugs. And I saw some real hardened cadets with tears streaming down their cheeks, and a lot of people crying in their cars leaving. This was harder than I-Day, and which I now really appreciate the way they're doing I-Day, because I can't imagine doing that twice. And I've heard that Thanksgiving can be even harder when they're sleeping at home and talking to friends for 4 or 5 days. I really can appreciate that too. So just remind them of why they're there, and that this is temporary, just like it was when you drop them off. And before you know it, they'll be back in the swing of things. And when I say back in the swing, these first few weeks before Parents' Weekend were just a small touch on what their life was going to be like on a day-to-day basis. When they get back in the swing of things after Parents' Weekend, it is full bore, and it's a big grind all the way to Thanksgiving. So take care. Have a great Air Force Day. Thanks.